my time and early morning in Canada and so on. So good day, everyone. And today we resume our COMRA webinar series. And we start off this season with a fantastic presentation by Panayota Contoleon. Many of you know her. She's a psychotherapist. She's a COMRA champion from the very, very beginning, part of RLT family. So, a few notes before we start. The presentation will run for about 1 hour. So please collect your questions and we will have Q&A session after the presentation. You may type them in a chat window and then later on we'll address them. Okay, so Maxim will switch off the microphones. Thank you, Maxim. So Panayota, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Arzan. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Let me start sharing my screen so we can begin slowly as people are rolling in. Okay. So Arzan, you can see my slide.
Yes, Panayota.
Okay. Thank you very much. So yes, thank you for the introduction, Arzan. It's been great to be here. It's great to open up the series of the webinars with a very, very dear subject of mine. My name is Panayota Contoleon. I am a psychotherapist and a counselor of mental health, and of course a COMRA practitioner. I have a private practice and I mainly work with young adults and couples with the aim to help clients understand and tackle their challenges or concerns. In other words, I help people help themselves. So today I chose to talk to you about my favorite developmental theory called attachment theory. I absolutely love it because it literally changed my life. Now, what's in it for you to watch this webinar? Attachment theory explains relationships, and this is what we will talk about today. The aim is for you to understand why you relate the way you do, why you behave the way you do in your relationships. And in order to understand behavior, we need to go back to childhood where the roots of the behavior are established. So attachment theory is extremely useful as a tool to do that. So if I had to ask you questions like, have you been or still are in a relationship that doesn't work for you? Or could it be that you have been in relationships that keep failing and you don't know why? Or you keep saying that you will do things differently next time and yet you don't? I know I've been there myself. Or perhaps are you desperately wanting to relate and your partner is not responding the way you would like them to do? Or you feel that nobody understands you? Or do you feel your partner is constantly demanding your attention and is suffocating you? So if any of these questions resonate with you, then definitely this webinar is for you. Now, let us talk a helicopter view of attachment theory. And I'm saying a helicopter view because it is literally impossible to discuss all information about a theory that took decades to be developed in this very limited time slot we have. Therefore, I will spare you the details and I will focus on the gist of the theory. I will only say, in honor of the people who developed it, that it was a process that was initiated by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, and later on was completed by Mary Main. Now, if you wish to learn more, there is plenty of information on the web, or if by the end of this webinar you feel like learning more about it, you can always contact me. Now, the gist of the attachment theory suggests that from the moment we are born, we're all programmed with a very, very strong drive to relate. As when we are infants, we're totally dependent on our caregivers, right? In order to relate with them, we come with what is, let's say, what is a repertoire of behaviors. We call them attachment behaviors, such as holding, clinging, cooing and gurgling, playing, crying. And all these behaviors are aimed at seeking and maintaining proximity to supportive others, mainly the mother we're talking here, right? So proximity seeking is an inborn emotion regulation device. We come with it. It's like a strategy. It's like a system, let's say, designed to protect an individual from physical and psychological, let's say, distress or threats, so that the stress is alleviated. Now, the successful accomplishment of these emotion regulation functions results in a sense of an attachment security, a sense that the world is a safe place, that one can rely on protective others, and that one can therefore confidently explore the environment and engage effectively with other people. So therefore, these early years of development, usually 0 to 3, this is where all the work is done, are critical because attachment figures have 3 roles. First role, they are targets of proximity maintenance. Proximity to our attachment figures, mainly the mother now, okay, is in times of need, in times of distress, is very, very important so that we feel safe. The second role of an attachment figure is to provide physical and emotional safe haven. This means that the mother will facilitate distress alleviation and is a source of support and comfort. I will explain more of it later on. And the third role, the attachment figures provide a secure base from which babies can explore and learn about the environment. So to give you an example, okay, you have a child in the crib and something distresses the child. It could be a pain, tooth pain, or a noise, okay? So the child cries. The mother needs to go and attend and take the baby in her arms and tell the baby, it's okay, mommy's here. Or when the babies start crawling, okay, and they explore the environment, if something is threatening or distresses them, they will either look back at the mother to make sure that the mother is there and the mother will know it's okay, and then they will continue playing. Or they will run back to the mother, okay, give her a hug. So this is what I mean by a safe haven, okay, how important the caregiver is in that respect. So as you understand, the role of the parent, mother, I would say, is critical in a child's learning about the self and the others, because at this age, the children find the balance between being autonomous, so go out, explore, and also being dependent on other people. And there is a balance there. And this happens because early relationships within the family are very important in this developmental period, because the neural circuits become organized and early consciousness is developed. And it is in the context of these family relationships that children have their earliest experience with the behavioral and moral standards of the social world. Social conditioning starts right there. So based on the way the mother responds to the baby's needs, how sensitive is the mother, how cooperative, how accepting, how accessible she is, babies form attachment styles. And since all babies become attached to the caregivers, even if the quality of the care they receive is insensitive or even abusive, they still form an attachment. Okay, in this case, it is an insecure attachment, but the attachment is formed. So sensitivity, mother's sensitivity, is key to understanding the development of individual differences in attachment relationship. And as I said, sensitivity is the mother there? Can the child even take a look at her or walk, or will the child be held, okay? So based on this relationship, over time, children internalize this attachment process, and they use these base relationships to form a prototype. And this prototype is used for later relationships outside the family. So this relationship prototype is a set of archetypes of themselves and the others that in attachment theory is called internal working models. So internal working models are very significant in a child's development because they form an inner guidance system. And this guidance system is there for future behavior. So they influence an individual's emotions, thoughts, behaviors, interactions with others, and expectations of others in relationships. So these internal working models, they are created from the caregiver's behavior, and of course the interpretation and the response of the child to this behavior. So the child forms an expectation, okay, and uses it to plan and decide the actions with others. So we're very smart creatures, right, from birth. So it teaches the child how to relate, how to behave, which behaviors elicit responses, which do not, as it forms mechanisms that operate at the unconscious psychobiological core. And this is how social conditioning works, right? Something we discussed at the previous webinar. So the internal working models are descriptively unconscious, meaning what I'm saying, what do I mean, is that they are out of awareness, but they're not out of awareness because we suppress them. Nevertheless, they determine both how a person interacts with others and the underlying assumptions that shape those interactions. So picture this. If you can picture this process, there is a relational matrix, right? Created out of which each one of us emerges. So as the child's memory and capacity for linking together thoughts, emotions, memories, all of these improve, then these matrix, these models, this matrix, become general mental representations of themselves and others. And in adulthood, this matrix, as it is formed as we grow up through social conditioning, is carried forward and profoundly impacts one's thoughts, emotions, behavior, and human relationships, especially when we are in love relationships. If I had to formulate the internal working models in a question from self to self, it would be, is this person trustworthy? Will they attend to me when I'm in distress? So now, having said all that, it is obvious that based on our early childhood relationship with the mother, we learn if we are worthy of love, if we're worthy of care, of attention, okay? In which case we form a secure attachment style. Now, if the mother's behavior is inconsistent or invalidating or ignoring, then we form an insecure attachment style. So, for example, what do I mean here? A child is crying in the evening, okay? And one evening, the mother goes there and pats the child on the back and says, I'm here, mommy's here, what is the problem? Don't worry, mommy's here. Perhaps, you know, give it a hug and then put the child back to the crib. We don't take the child to bed with us, right? But we are there. We go there and we say, we're here, okay? If the next day, though, the child cries and the mother doesn't show up, then this is the inconsistent behavior that I'm talking about. Or it could be invalidating. For example, the child is in distress and goes to the mother to say how the child feels, and the mother invalidates the feeling. Even if it's, I'm thirsty, and the mother says, thirsty again? You just had water. No, simple things like that. So the drive to relate is very strong in all of us. However, the way we deal with closeness varies based on our attachment style. So we will discuss today, why some people are anxiously seeking closeness, why some others avoid it and why others fear it. And I'm sure you will find yourself somewhere in this presentation as I have found myself, and I will talk to you about my attachment style. Now, the aim, I want to remind you, the aim at the end of this presentation is for you to acquire a better understanding of who you are, why you have the relationship patterns you have, why you behave in certain ways, etc. Now, before I explain the different attachment styles, it is worth mentioning how the attachment styles were explored. Now, Mary Ainsworth, this lady here, devised a mildly stressful laboratory procedure in which 1-year-old children were separated from their mothers for 3 minutes. And then they were left either with a stranger and alone. Now, this process was called strange situation procedure and was designed to mimic everyday separations in which infants might be left with strangers or momentarily on their own, okay? So they observed how the child reacts to the separation, okay, with the mother. How willing is the child to be comforted by a stranger, and how the child responds when the mother returns. So they looked at separation anxiety, they looked at ability to be with another person, and they also looked at how fast this child was comforted, was soothed, you know, after the mother came back. There are 2 fantastic videos I would like to play and show you. However, the time is limited. If any one of you wants to watch these videos, I can send you the links. The only thing you have to do is type your name and your email in the chat, and my kind friend Maxim will gather this information, and I will make sure you get these links. These are 2 amazing videos that will help you get the picture of this strange situation procedure. So based on this, the attachment styles were developed. There is 1 secure attachment style and 3 insecure: anxious ambivalent, anxious avoidant, and disorganized. So besides that, after this research, Mary Main developed my favorite tool, which is called Adult Attachment Interview. I use it extensively in my practice. I use it because it helps me identify the attachment style of my clients. It helps them also understand a lot of things about them. And it is something that I personally feel that it's one of the best tools ever, you know, a psychologist came about. So let's take a look how the internal working models work, okay? Here, I will read from the slides, and I will go pretty fast. I will use a few examples so that I can move forward to the even more important things I want to talk about. So remember, 1 secure attachment style, okay? This is when the mother is available, responsive, quick, consistent, and sensitive. Meaning, the child is crying, I'll go there. I'll say I'm here. All the time, no matter how busy I am. Okay, or the child is in distress, looks at me, I will look at the child, I'll nod, the child will continue playing. So infants experiencing attendance to their emotional and physical needs. And this is very, very important because they grow up to be very happy children. They feel secure. They are able to explore the environment. They're happy. And they also believe and trust that their needs will be met. So this balance between autonomy and dependence, so I can do my own thing, but I can also depend on somebody else when I'm in distress, is in balance. Huh? Fantastic. And these children are less disruptive, less aggressive, and more mature than children with insecure attachment styles. Now, let's move to the insecure attachment styles. Remember, 3, okay? First one, anxious, ambivalent, insecure attachment style. This is when the mother is inconsistent, sometimes sensitive, sometimes neglectful. What I shared before about one evening we'll go to the crib, the other evening we'll let the child cry, okay, and won't show up. So children, you know, they feel distress when they're separated from the mother because they don't know what is going to happen. Am I going to be taken care of or not? They fear strangers, and when the mother is back, they approach her. You can watch this in the videos. It is amazing to watch, okay? But then they reject contact after separation. It is amazing to watch in these videos how 18-month-olds react. It's amazing. So as children, they grow up to be anxious, insecure. We see a lot of anger. And why do we see anger? It's normal, right? I don't know. I don't know. Will my mother be there? Or will not she be there? So I'm angry about that, okay? I'm insecure, I'm anxious. I cannot rely on others to meet my needs. And as children, they're very clingy and over-dependent. You know, there's these children who go after you and they will grab you and won't let you go no matter what. Now, the anxious avoidant, the second insecure style, is when the caregiver is distant and disengaged. Here we see usually mothers who are users, or we also see here mothers who suffer from postpartum depression. It's not their fault. They cannot deal with the child, okay? So we always need to be very careful and attentive, you know, when we have a new mother for the signs of possible depression. In this case, infants show no preference between a parent and a complete stranger. They play happily with a stranger and they ignore the mother after separation. When they grow up, they are not very explorative. Well, guess what? Why will I be explorative if I don't know if I will have a secure base to go back to? I will not explore, okay? Because I don't feel safe to explore. So these children are emotionally distant and they believe that others cannot meet their needs. And they are withdrawn. And when we have children who are withdrawn, we always try to understand, is it because of the avoidant attachment style, or is it because they're shy, or what else is going on there? And then the third insecure attachment style is the disorganized insecure attachment style. Well, here the mother acts in the polarities. So she will either have extreme reactions or she will be on the other side, passive, doing nothing. She may be frightened herself, or she can be frightening to the child. So infants in this case, you know, they show inconsistent attachment behaviors, and as children, they are again, you know, they follow the mother's style. They are on the polarities. So they will be either withdrawn, passive, and depressed and not responsive, or extremely angry. We see a lot of anger here, okay? So as children, they are confused because guess what? Their internal working models are not clear. They're disorganized, they're all over the place. So they exhibit dazed behavior, sometimes seeming either confused or apprehensive in the presence of the parent, okay? So let us look how the internal working models work, okay? Here we see that, you know, we either have a positive view of ourselves or a negative view of ourselves, and a positive view of others or a negative view of others. And then you will see how the attachment styles are formed. Here, for example, the secure attachment, okay? So a child whose caretaker responds reliably develops a very positive representation of the self and the other. And this is when we say we have a secure attachment style. So they feel they are accepted, they feel they are worthy of love, and their internal working models are others are there for me when I need them, or he will never leave me, or she will always calm me down, okay? Now, the three insecure attachment styles, let's see the anxious ambivalent one here. The child has a negative model of the self and a positive model of others, right? So they rely on the others for their needs. and their internalized working model is she will let me down or he will leave me, because they're not sure if the caretaker will be accessible. Okay, you remember inconsistent behavior. They feel extremely unworthy. They have all kinds of reactions: anger, confusion, passivity, and they have a negative self-image. There is a lot of low self-esteem here in the adults. We'll see how these models of a child, the internal working models, play out when we become adults. What happens to us when we become adults? Now, the avoidant dismissive, the anxious avoidant child, has a positive view of the self and a negative model of the other. And here, basically, these children, they have experienced rejection. Remember, mother withdrawn, right? So invalidating the feelings or not present. So they have experienced rejection. Caretaker is not accessible. So I have to, I also feel unworthy. And the internal working models here is, well, I don't need him, or I can take care of myself. Rings a bell. And then disorganized, fearful children, they have negative view of the self and the others. So future disorganized infants represent states of not being sensed and known by their mothers. So particularly in moments of distress, and they represent confusion about the organization. It's something is disturbed there in the fundamental integration of the self. And this internal working model sets a trajectory in development which may disturb the process. And usually we also see here children from traumatic events when they're young. They have dissociative experiences, issues with regulating their emotions. Now, the internal working model here is there is something wrong with me, or no one can love. And I distinctively remember when I was in practicum, I had a beautiful, beautiful young lady who came to therapy, and then few sessions down the road, she told me, I feel I'm damaged. I was shocked. I never imagined that I could hear a statement like that so upfront from such a wonderful young person. Yet, because she was in this disorganized, fearful attachment style, she was feeling that there's something wrong with her. So, based on attachment theory, attachment relationships contribute to personality and social development. We talked about social conditioning. From the cradle to grave. This is what the founder said. Therefore, adult relationship experiences are embedded in a process that begins in the very early caregiving experiences. So in life, we usually react to the other person's behavior, right? And I say react because this is the automatic way we act when our buttons are pushed. Action, reaction. And attachment theory addresses the emotional impact of the partner's behavior, positive and negative. And based on studies, this impact was addressed in the two dimensions underlying self-reported adult romantic attachment measures. You see here avoidance and anxiety. So the difference between the two is obvious, okay? That is, the individuals who become anxious in a relationship will feel guilty and wrong when their partner withdraws, and consequently they act out to make the partner react. Whereas individuals who become avoidant, they quickly withdraw when they perceive things are being too intense or overwhelming. But let's get to the gist of things. So I am a securely attached child, and I grow up to become a secure, autonomous adult. What does this mean? Okay. Studies have found that individuals classified as secure adults, based on the adult attachment questionnaire that I talked to you about, they behave more constructively when they're confronted with negative partner behavior, and they basically, when something happens, they acknowledge that they are distressed. Okay, but they don't they don't avoid it or suppress it. They turn to others for support. So in this case, adults, they are more empathetic. They're better at recovering from conflict. You see what I have put here. They're confident in relationships. They are happy most of the times. They feel loved, accepted, and competent. Why is that? This is because these individuals have an adaptive functioning. Okay, they feel distress, but they are adaptive. They are very adaptive in dealing with it. Okay, they acknowledge it. They will share with their partners. They will cooperate. Now, let's see what happens with the anxious, preoccupied adult. Okay, you remember now this is a child that was anxious ambivalent in the children's quadrant. And here, what happens is that the persons who are anxiously attached, they have a very hyperactivated attachment system. What does this mean? Their fight or flight mechanism is always working. Okay, they are in distress because they are very sensitive. They feel they're threatened very easily, and they ruminate. They keep, the internal dialogue is so strong, rumination over and over again, and amplification of negative emotions. So these people, they worry a lot about relationships. They are sometimes even obsessed for closeness. They fear rejection, and of course they're very concerned with their social image, need of approval. So for example, I am an anxiously preoccupied adult. Actually, this is my attachment style. When I did it, I was there and it made perfect sense. So anxiously preoccupied adults, when they call their partner and the partner doesn't answer, they start getting worked up. Why isn't he answering? What's wrong? So as the time passes, then the mind takes them to darker places, scenarios. What is he doing? Where is he? Is he cheating on me? And you know how it is. So these people, the anxiously attached individuals, they have low self-esteem. I know I have. I have. I'm working on it. And they also feel they blame themselves. Okay, so when something goes wrong, they blame themselves. Oh, what did I do? Did I do something wrong? And they will do anything to keep the relationship, anything. And here we see a lot of anxiety, worry, anxiety, and chronic anxiety, of course, leads to depression. So we're very careful, to monitor these things. So remember here, the internalized working model is, she will let me down. Okay, don't believe I can be taken care of. The avoidant dismissing adult. Now, here what we have is a very restricted acknowledgement of distress. I am distressed. Okay, they are distressed. I'm not avoidant. They are distressed, but they don't acknowledge it. Okay, and therefore, because they don't acknowledge it, they suppress it. They don't seek comfort. It's very difficult for these people, to ask for support, and they perceive proximity seeking as futile or even dangerous. So I'm sure you have met people who are, withdrawn. They don't talk. You ask them, "What is the matter?" Nothing. What is the matter? There's something I can sense, right? No, nothing is the matter. Why? Because they hide their emotions. They don't open up to others. They prefer to live alone. These are the tough cookies, okay? Tough cookies. They think higher of themselves than others. I don't need them. Why do I need them? Remember their internal working model is, I don't need him, or I can't take, I can't rely on others. I can take care of myself. I don't need somebody else. Okay. And then the fearful avoidant adult who was disorganized, okay, disorganized attachment when I was a child. Here, these adults, how should I say, they experience a roller coaster of emotions, okay? They have a lot of ups and downs. They switch, as I said, they oscillate from one polarity to the other. So one day they can be extremely happy and um, everything is okay, and then the next moment, they can be down in the dumps. They're very fearful at making connections, even though, as I said, this need, the drive to relate is there for all of us. However, it is dismissed because of the fear. The fear here is debilitating, okay? And they could be self-harming or abusive to others. And these are the people who feel damaged, like my beloved client that I talked to you about. And remember now, their internal working models are, there is something wrong with me, I'm damaged. No one actually can love, okay? And in my practice, I have to say something here, okay? Because after having used the adult attachment interview so many times, I have worked with so many people. As I said, attachment theory is one of my main theories that I work around because it makes so much sense, okay, to me. After a lot of interviews that I have done and worked with the people in my practice, I came to realize that there are degrees to how insecure we are. And at first I hadn't realized it. I mean, the adult attachment interview has different stages. So you're anxious, preoccupied, but then under that, there are subcategories, okay? But I hadn't realized what this meant until I actually practiced a lot. So for example, two people with an anxious attachment style, maybe here, or maybe here in this diagram, okay? So you can see here that this person here has much higher anxiety than that person, okay? Much higher anxiety and a bit less avoidance. That person here, okay, has, okay, a bit higher avoidance, but still low, but also low anxiety, okay? So yes, both are anxious, preoccupied, or a person could be here, okay? It could have high anxiety and high avoidance. So the journey to healing, the journey of adjustment in at least my practice, in what I do, is not the same, even though the attachment style may be the same. And also each individual is not the same, okay? So there's no maps here, no guidelines, we go along as the client brings things to us and we work with the client. And of course, it is a process. So last but not least, okay, because we're all adults here, I want to discuss a little bit about what's going on here, okay? Securely attached individuals have learned that they can trust, whereas insecure attached individuals, all of them, they have learned that they cannot trust. So secure individuals, they feel joy because they intelligently cooperate. And insecure individuals, they mostly feel distressed because they don't cooperate intelligently. I will throw a few things here that I'm sure you all know, just to make a point here about the trust, how trust works. I definitely have trust issues with the male. The ones who know me know that well, and I have been working on them many years now. So hopefully I have been, I have moved towards a more secure attachment style, but still, it is there. So the secure autonomous individuals, they have a win-win situation. Of course, they intelligently cooperate, they work together, the male includes the female, they have a common vision, they work together, they don't judge, okay, very important, and they are able to forgive. Whereas the insecurely attached individuals, they're less inclined to consider and accommodate partners' needs, okay? what I can say is that here in the anxious quadrant, okay, there is a lot of fear of abandonment. There is fear of taken advantage of. There is fear of failing to meet the partner's needs. For me, it was fear of taken advantage of. I kept telling myself, I'm doing everything I can. Why am I not appreciated? Why am I taken advantage of? Why is it that they don't get it? But can it be that 2, 5, or 10 people don't get it? No? So I'm doing something that I need to change. So this is what happens here in the anxious preoccupied. What happens here in the avoidant dismissing, they are entrenched, they are so concerned about autonomy, control, and independence that they completely leave everything else outside. So you see here, this is applicable for all insecurely attached individuals, less likely to forgive, less likely to cooperate. They use dysfunctional interaction strategies, etc. Now, the last slide with which I will conclude the theory, okay, because a very dear friend of mine challenged me at the rant that I spend a lot of time in theory, so I want to keep it short so that I talk more about experiences in the next part. Is about social conditioning, okay, and what are the unconscious main beliefs that insecurely attached individuals have about themselves because they are insecurely attached, okay? So the anxiously attached individuals believe they are helpless and that they cannot self-regulate the emotions. Okay, this is a term in psychology we use because, the emotions take over you, okay? Therefore, they are forever putting their power outside themselves in seeking validation from other people. And they enlist others to come to their aid. They're passive, and as I said, they have fear of abandonment. I have many real life experiences of these behaviors, as I said, starting from myself, my friends, and of course in my practice where we go deeper. I see beautiful, intelligent, charismatic people, females and males, being doormats, okay, who will do anything to keep the relationship. They pretend they're helpless. And I say pretend because nobody actually is helpless, right? They just play small, and they are run by the little self, is running the show, this fear of abandonment. So and they don't believe they deserve better. Here, married people who have affairs, or single people dating, having affairs with married people. They do so because they're anxiously attached, because they don't believe they actually deserve a real relationship. People who are stuck in not at all satisfying relationships or even abusive relationships, they also fall in this category. Who else? People who are in relationships and they feel attacked when the partner shares feedback, okay? They take it personally because they have very low self-esteem. These individuals, the insecurely anxious individuals, have a very low self-esteem. So they take things very personally and they get defensive, trying to justify, because the need of approval and what other people think of them is very, very strong. So I'm sure you can think of your own examples. Now, moving on to the avoidantly insecure individuals, they are also fearful, although as they are more familiar with, they are familiar with this unresponsiveness. So they use destructive ways. They react by withdrawing, they deny or suppress their needs, they rely on others, and they feel distressed, okay, because as I said, the drive to relate is there. So now let's see what is next, okay. This part for me was the most challenging part, okay, because giving practical tools on how to shift from an insecure to a secure attachment style is not quite easy, because each case is different, each attachment style is different, different degrees. So I work differently with each of my clients. And of course, they are different. Some of them are more willing to work, some of them have resistance, you know. So therapy is a process, okay? Therapy is a process. It's a very dynamic process and cannot be put in bullets or steps. However, I will share with you my experience. I will share with you a tool that I use as part of my process of helping people. And the healing journey starts from what? We talked about it in the previous webinar. The healing journey starts with awareness. So if you remember at the beginning of the webinar, I told you that the purpose of this webinar is to understand better why you behave a certain way in your relationships. So in other words, for you to be aware about how you have come to behave the way you do. What happened in your childhood, you know, what are the factors that brought you where you're here. So we talked about it in the previous webinar when we spoke of the process of true healing. So in order to have awareness about our behavior, we need to go to the roots of the behavior to recapitulate. So what is really going on here? Okay, we start from here. Why are they pushing my buttons? What is happening here? Okay, why do I get angry? Emotions are there to guide us. They are there to get the gift out of the emotions. So in therapy, we work extensively with emotions. And what I see repeatedly is that we are all so conditioned. Well, let me exit. Let me exit because I just want to. I want to stop sharing because I want to talk just a little bit here for you on this subject, so that you don't look at the slides a lot. So the roots of the behavior, okay, they are in childhood. We saw what happens. We saw how we're conditioned by the mother. We saw why we come to react the way we react. When we talk about emotions, okay, we're so socially conditioned about not showing or feeling any negative emotion. So you're angry, don't show it, it's bad. You're sad, don't show it, it's a sign of weakness. You have you have fear, don't show it, it's again a sign of weakness. You should not be fearful. Why do you feel fear? Everything is fine. So what happens here, and I see it in my practice, okay, because my clients do not want to stay with a negative emotion, they will escape it or suppress it. Mostly escapism, I see. And this is where all the addictions come from. I see my clients eat their emotions, drink their emotions, smoke their emotions, gamble their emotions. They do everything in their power to just move away from the negative emotion. And this is, for me, why the social conditioning is so detrimental, you know, in our developmental years, and how attachment theory is a superb way to show my clients how this works, because then they get it right away. So let me go back to sharing a little bit more. So going to the roots, right, is important because it triggers emotions. And we want to stay there. We want to stay with the emotions. We work in therapy with emotions. And if it cooperates, okay, good. So the other thing that I do in therapy is Psychoeducation, okay? Some people have difficulty even identifying their emotions. So what do I do with them? I send them the wheel of emotions. It is incredible how young adults, okay, I ask them, how do you feel? And they will give me a broad definition, you know, I feel awful. I won't say the other word. This is not a feeling, is it? Right? So I help them tap. It's not an emotion. I help them tap into their emotions. I psychoeducate them about the emotions. Also, they will often tell me, oh, you know, this happened with my boyfriend and he made me feel angry. And I say, no, he did not make you feel angry. It's his behavior that elicited this emotion. It's not him. We're so used to identifying with behavior, our behavior, that we also do it for other people, but we're not our behavior. So I psychoeducate them. I explain to them, you know, behavior, it's a different thing, okay? We're not our behavior. It's not the self. It's a different thing. It's a product of social conditioning. And when I actually separate the two and they get it, then we work also on how to change this behavior, because this is the only way we can go about it. And the aim here is to stop identifying with behavior, stop, you know, acting from the place of the little self, because this is the place of the little self. So sometimes they will tell me, why did he do this to me? How could she say this to me? Why? And part of psychoeducation is we never ask why in therapy. Never. We ask how. How come did we end up being where we are now? How come did we end up feel the way we feel now? Because this way we put ourselves in the picture. We stop blaming the other. Okay? And this is where my clients wake up. This is where I see the shift. When they start realizing that it's not the others, it's also them. They have played their role. So owning and claiming their part, this is where the healing journey begins. This is what I mean awareness, being wide awake and alert of why I do this, why I feel this way. So I said I will share a tool with you that I use in my practice. I use this tool to challenge this negative thinking, challenge these internal working models. Once we go to attachment theory, once we see what is happening, okay, then I start challenging. This is not an easy process. So one of the ways I do it, which I can share here, because it's more practical, it's a tool for cognitive behavioral theory, CBT. It's called automatic thought record. So what happens is that let me show you in practical terms. So I ask them, okay, to take note in the course of the week that we don't see each other, to take note events that distressed them, made them feel uncomfortable, okay? So I ask them to write down what happened, okay? And I give them specific instructions. For example, I ask them to write down what happened, where, when, who were with, how did this happen, okay? And then in the next column, I ask them to write down their thoughts. Again, I give them instructions. They need to be specific, to write down what went through their mind, what disturbed them, what button is this pressing for me, what did these thoughts or images mean to me, what do they say about me? You know, I ask them to fill in a sentence, I am. So they have to think. It's a process to go there, and I support them when they have difficulties. And what would be the worst case scenario here? You know, I ask them to go negative. So this is also a process. Then I ask them to write down their emotions. So how all the emotions, anger, sadness, fear, everything. And I ask them to rate it 80%, 100%, 70%, okay? And so forth and so on. And then they have to write down the emotions, the response. What did they do? Did they say anything? Did they do anything? Okay. And let me just again, I want to stop sharing because what happens here is they write down this, they fill out this column, okay? And I go with them and I challenge their thoughts. So I ask them, for example, if they had said, if we go through the process and they say, I am not important, okay? And then I ask them, okay, give me facts that they support this thought. Facts, okay. And they start thinking, oh, okay. Start thinking, and they think hard, okay? They may come up with some facts, and then I ask them, okay, give me facts that they do not support this thought. And they start thinking, and I help them. Well, how about that? How about this? You have done that. I have seen you doing this. So I point out to them things that they don't even notice. And then I ask them to write down how they feel after this exercise. Oh my God, this is amazing. They feel completely differently. And the more advanced ones, the ones who have worked on themselves, they manage to laugh at their folly. Oh my God, how did I let this affect me so much? You know. And of course, I remember when I went through this process, you know, because some of them are angry and they get stuck. Why didn't I get it? Why? How many times you have told me? Oh, I've been there. I have beaten myself up so many times. I don't even remember who I am. However, working with yourself, then you accept, okay, I screwed up. I'm sorry. You know, I did it. And each time you catch yourself doing it faster and faster and faster until you catch yourself before you do it. But it is a process. And I can see how anxious they are, how fast they want to be, you know, to master this, okay? But I keep reminding them, it is a process. So share back, I'm almost done. I want to share with you here an example I often use in my practice. I tell them, okay, let's say you walk on the street and you see me on the other side of the pavement and you wave at me, okay? And I don't wave back at you. What are your thoughts and emotions? And oh my God, in a group of people, I get different thoughts and different emotions. One behavior, same behavior, different emotions and thoughts. And this is the beauty of this exercise, because I want to show you here, for example, if this cooperates with me. So here, for example, you know, if the thought was, oh, what a jerk, okay, what is the emotion? I'm angry. And what could be the behavior? Shouting, what's your problem? You don't see me? Or other people may don't say anything and then they will never talk to me. And I don't know why they don't talk to me, okay? Or the thought, she must be having a bad day. Well, Panayota probably had a bad day. No emotion, neutral. They walk away and forget the incident. Okay, so this is a very useful tool that I use to make them aware. You know, they wake up, because once you become aware of your own irrational thoughts, then you will learn how to change them. Okay, and the thoughts that once led to depression or anxiety or anger or eating disorders or addictions or what have you here, you know, they can be replaced with new, more constructive thoughts, which will lead to positive emotions. And As we are a step before the end of this webinar, here I'm sharing a photo that a very dear client of mine sent me with a note. She sent it to me on Viber with a note underneath. I thought you would appreciate that. And we had a good laugh, you know, when she came to session, because here, you know, I have to say, first of all, that therapy is for the strong people, not for the weak. It is not easy to work on yourself, not therapy, just working on yourself. You are all working on yourself because you're here in this webinar. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been. And it takes courage. You're brave to be here. You're brave to want to learn more about yourselves. And this process of learning more about myself is something that when I went through it, at first I was so angry with my mother because I had copy pasted her attachment, not to mention that I realized all the mistakes I had done with my son. Because guess what? These behaviors are copy pasted. So not only was I upset because I was anxiously attached, I was upset because I had made my son anxiously attached. And I was upset because of this and that and everything else. But the point is, and I'm very good at that, I bounce back very fast. I'm resilient. The point is not to get stuck in self-pity, not to beat yourself up, okay? So you work with the emotions. Garrett and Avril had a fantastic webinar on emotions. I encourage you to watch it if you haven't. It's in the Comrade webinar file, you know, YouTube. So the point is that this client of mine, I worked with her 3 years. She has made such a progress. I am so proud of her. She is now coming to therapy, and this is why she sent me this picture. This is a positive message here, okay? Once we're able to laugh at our folly, then we have made a huge progress. And attachment theory is explaining a lot of things about why we behave the way we behave, but it's not there to keep us stuck, okay? So this is what I do in therapy and in the work I do with my clients. We move forward, we acknowledge. It's personal power to acknowledge everything, to own and claim how we behave and how we can change our behavior. So this is all that I wanted to say for today. You can contact me if you want, and I will stop sharing. So there you are. And if you would like to turn your cameras on, I would love to see your faces, because all this time I was looking at my slides. If not, it's fine, of course, no pressure. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Panayota. What a fantastic presentation. Wow. Thank you. Okay, well, I have a couple of questions myself, but let's see first in the audience, because there's so much material, Panayota. You went through like in a lightning speed for like, I don't know how many 100 years of evolving our awarenesses, collective ones. Okay, so who would like to ask? You can unmute yourself, just ask a question, or you can type it if you cannot ask it.
Great presentation, thank you very much. One of the things I was noticing for myself, a question that came up in looking at the grid for, let's say, when I was a teenager, I pictured myself in terms of, let's say, wanting to go date girls and stuff, to be in the, like, scared to death, the bottom left-hand quadrant. But then when it came to friendships and socializing and stuff, I was much more feeling secure. So do you notice that there's a difference in people, let's say that the attachment style, because you said at the beginning, is primarily in relation to romantic relationships, but then in your presentation, you were relating like general behaviors, like you said, if someone's across the street and they don't wave back and this kind of thing. So do you use it differently when it comes to romantic versus general friendship relationships? How does that work? If you could say a little bit about that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Garrett. Good question. We form a number. We form, let's say, 2 to 3 attachment styles based on our relationship with. So if we have, let's say, 2 parents, or we have a grandmother here in Greece, it's very common, you know, grandparents spend a lot of time with the children. So or, you know, children spend a lot of time with nannies, okay? So there is one main attachment style that is with the main caregiver, which drives the romantic relationships patterns. And there are secondary attachment styles which play out in all the other relationships. But when we're really challenged is when we're in romantic relationships. And this is where the main one kicks in. So yes, for example, I have been an anxiously attached female in my romantic relationships, yet I was towards the avoidant dismissing quadrant, but closer to the secure, not far out, in my business. So these 2 parts, you know, these 2 ways I was dealing with people, because in business, I was in male polarity. So I was the boss, for example. So there, my attachment style was the secondary attachment style, okay? It was easier to be there. However, in romantic relationships, the primary one is the one that plays the role, and that was my mother's relationship, attachment style, I'm sorry. She was very insecure. I grew up in a family that my mother was always worrying about her relationship with my father, always victimizing herself. So this is what I picked up from her when it comes to romantic relationships. So yes, we can have different attachment styles, but there is the primary and the secondary ones. I don't know if this answered your question.
Yes, thank you. That's really good. That answers it clearly. And then the second question I wrote down is, you know, when I was looking at the internal working models, like the graph again, so it's like I was observing there's this projection of bad and good and right and wrong in the quadrants. Like, let's say if I'm down in that bottom quadrant where I'm low value and very avoidant, then, you know, the whole perception is bad, let's say, of everything. You know, these people are bad and I'm bad. And then up here, I'm bad, I'm not so bad, but these people are bad. Or over here. So there's a lot of, so when you're working with people, do you help them bring, I guess, well, that was kind of what you said at the end when you shared about how you work with people in clinic or practice, is helping them to bring that back to themselves, those projections.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. And then what goes with that is just the other part of what, looking at the graphs, can people work backwards? Because I was kind of working backwards to different stages of relationship in the past, where let's say I would be very anxious versus now. So this is kind of, so you can kind of generally work backwards. Yes, would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
All right, and then the projections are the whole thing then. You're really trying to bring the projections back. Got it.
Exactly.
Okay, I like the models. Thank you. Yeah, they're really neat.
Thank you, Garrett. You mentioned borderline personality disorder. I want to explain for everyone else what borderline personality disorder is, and I will do it fast. People with borderline personality disorder, they move you know, they oscillate from one polarity to the other. They're black or white, good or bad. There are no gray areas. So they may put you up on a pedestal and they bring you down in a second, okay? They have a lot of anger. These are the, I'm sharing the symptoms now. A lot of anger, and they basically, if I can put it in one sentence, they oscillate between fear of abandonment and fear of engulfment. Meaning, I want to relate so badly. When I come close to my partner, I have fear of engulfment, that I will be lost in the relationship. So I will create a crisis so that my partner either tells me to go to hell or I will remove myself. The moment we are apart, I feel fear of abandonment. And oh my God, I keep chasing and chasing and chasing. So, and they go through this, you know, like, what was it? Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Barton, back and forth, back. This is borderline, two borderline personality disorders together. Cannot live without that person and can live without and cannot at the same time. So borderline, Ian, to answer your question, they actually play out in all the insecure quadrants. Why? Because they're anxious, they want a relationship, they have fear of abandonment when they don't have it. When they have the relationship, they want to pull away because of fear of engulfment, so they avoid, okay? And they are also fearful because they don't feel safe. And this is the only personality disorder that you mentioned that plays out in all the quadrants. You know, I can give you many more examples, but I don't want to be technical. Eating disorders, for example, we see them in the avoidant, dismissing. Depressive, anxious, dependent personalities, we see in the anxious quadrant. Some psychotic features and symptoms, post-traumatic stress disorder we see in the fearful. And I will end here. I don't want to get too technical, but thank you for the question.
Panayota, what struck me when I was listening to you, well, first was my own memory when I was maybe 2 or even less, when I was left at the daycare and I was crying my head off. And the memory of that event, you know, like, was in my dreams for years and years and years after that, because so as that when I was abandoned, well, I felt abandoned in a daycare, and I was very small, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting for my parents to come, and they didn't come, and they didn't come, and I was standing and crying all day long. But well, later on, obviously, okay, so I'm adult and I'm behaving, but down there, deep down below, I still have that small child who is crying in a daycare. So when I look at the 4 quadrants especially, and you listed the secure attachment, and then you got obviously the insecure, and I thought that's very interesting. Well, who develops secure attachments? Probably nobody on this planet. Well, maybe there's someone who does this perfect job, and you know, you grow up to be a secure person, perhaps. But my guess is that almost everybody develops some sort of insecure. So what happens is that it's not so much that we have, let's say, somebody has a secure and others have insecure attachment style. It's more of the journey from dispelling the illusions that we have carried for years and decades of life. So the examples you brought, you know, what are you actually an important? Give me an examples. So, but it's a brilliant example to show, you know, this is actually an illusion. As you dispel that illusion, the hold of that pattern or the model becomes less and less and less and less, until you can do something. You can at least accept the possibility. Oh, I can behave differently actually. And it's step by step, millimeter by millimeter, we, you know, those illusions start to go away, the social conditioning relax. And when you describe this secure attachment style, what, you know, is a person who has a fluid perception, which actually matches to what is going on in reality.
Mhm.
And obviously, you can take relevant actions that are sort of matching to what is going on, and either become upset or you don't become upset or you become angry, if the situation requires. If it doesn't require, then you don't become angry. No, it's all matching so
Mm.
beautifully.
And
So,
yeah,
mm,
Arzan, you made a good point at the beginning when you said, well, nobody actually has a secure attachment. Yes, and secure attachment, even the people who have secure attachment, they also feel anxious. They also feel avoidant. However, because they have worked on themselves, they have these adaptive mechanisms, to deal with this distress. It's not that they are perfect and they don't feel distress or they don't feel, they don't get anxious, but because they have been working on the social conditioning and they know what creates this distress, they tackle it. They tackle the challenge faster, but they will feel distress. It's just that the difference with the secure ones is that they will, how we handle emotions, we acknowledge, they acknowledge they are distressed. This is the key. Acknowledgement of the emotion. I am now angry. And, there are, and, Elizabeth has talked a lot about how to tackle fear, anger, First step is that acknowledgement. So this is what happens with the securely attached individuals. They start from there. Whereas because of the work and because of the gradual shedding of social conditioning. This is a
and
difference.
also, Anayota, I really liked the framework that you presented. Because if we talk about individual diagnosis in mental health, and we can go really deep and really complicated to some very specific topics, but here we look at how we actually bond, and this is like the complete rock bottom of life, is how we bond to anybody, to the self, to my car, to my neighbor, to my wife, how we bond. And when you think about the way you bond with anything in life, that's what your life basically becomes, the way you bond. And so what you presented is, okay, so let's unpack, how this bonding happens, like in chemistry, the two atoms bond this way or they bond that way, and that creates the whole, manifested universe just by bonding in different ways. So, very simple structure, but fantastic. Love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Arzan. Thank you.
So I wanted to thank you, first of all. It was very interesting. Some things already heard and know, but it was very well presented and interesting. My question would be, I also recognized my daughter's attachment style, which is anxious attachment. And she has a boyfriend now for a year, and they have a beautiful relationship. But they are at the moment now when they are starting to meet some serious challenges, and I can really see clearly how her way of attachment influences it. Like she's really fearful of abandonment and that she's not important, whilst I can see from the boyfriend's perspective that all the facts says the opposite. So, and I was wondering if you would have some tips how I could support her or help her to gain some clarity.
Does your daughter speak English?
Yes.
So for starters, I would suggest she watches the recording.
Okay.
So for example, you can tell her that you watched, something that you think may be of interest to her. Okay, that's how we start. We suggest if she wants to watch it fine. If she doesn't, fine again. So tips, I have to be very honest with you, because the relationship with the mother, okay, so you may tell her the same thing that a stranger will tell her, and she will listen from the stranger, but not from you. Okay. So first, for starters, I would ask you, to reflect, to bring it back to yourself and make it about yourself, and work with yourself, because the kids do not what we tell them, but what we show them. So if for example, I give you a personal example. I was a single mother, okay? I have a son, and I kept him in a bubble because I didn't want him to feel distressed. I was hiding from him. I would cry at night, but I would never show him, that I was distressed, because I was afraid of hurting him. Okay, at the time, this is what I thought was the correct thing to do. However, okay, I didn't mirror to him what it means to be vulnerable. I didn't mirror to him what it means to open your heart. So then, as he was growing up, I was telling him, tell me, open up to me. I'm here, open up, tell me. He would look at me and I would be upset. Well, after working with myself and, everything that I have done, I know, okay, that because I didn't mirror it to him, no matter what I told him would not change. And the relationship with my son changed when I started changing. Not talking, but changing. So I would say, lead by example. You have, a relationship with, you can mirror her what a healthy relationship is,
It's just the important aspect of my concern is that what she observes at home and what kind of a relationship we have, it's that she might have great expectations, like that. I get a lot of compliments from them, or like we show love for each other, and I think she expects that from the relationship, and of course.
And why wouldn't she expect it? Doesn't she deserve it?
Yeah, that's a good observation. Yeah. It's just that boy is different, and he expressed that love in his own way, not so verbally, or not so in his own way.
That you are a mother now. Your daughter has her own relationship. It's her challenge. She can deal with it. I am sure she can deal with it. We call forth people in our lives who will help us grow. And mostly, in what I see from my relationships, from my clients and my own marriage, with my ex-husband, I was anxiously attached. He was avoidant. Oh my God. So you can imagine, the more I was pushing and wanting, the more he would pull away. And it was a constant dissatisfaction for both of us. But it was my challenge. And I woke up and I took action, So I know we worry about our children, but they're not children anymore. And you need to trust your daughter that she can deal with it. And if you want, supporting our children is only by mirroring the behavior, nothing else. Unless we're worried about something really, for example, if they are, I don't know, even in addictions, what we say, the guidance we give to parents is, Just tell your child that you're concerned. You love them, I love you, and I'm concerned about you. And I suggest you need help. You get help. That's all we say. We never judge. We never tell them that what they're doing is wrong. We just share how we feel. Just share how we feel. That's all. In difficult situations. Otherwise, I would say, step back. You're doing a great job, and she will be fine. Yeah, she's trying to find herself.
Yeah, but still, it's still I have to say that it's a great mirror, like the relationship that she has with the boy, and for me and as well, we admire how early they start to learn and to explore and to it's just the acceptance of that they will make mistakes. They have to make mistakes, and otherwise they won't learn.
There's
and
other ways.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Pansa.
It depends at what age the trauma happens. So if, for example, the child is securely attached, attachment, this is done latest by age of 3. What is done is done. And this is, why, when a parenthesis also for then what you just said is like, we think we know, but we don't, because what is done, and then the children, our children have to find their own way to how to relate. We have given them what it was to give them. They chose us for that specific reason. So in terms of trauma, if it happens by the age of 3, then the attachment is about, I think, 90%, from the studies, just stays in the fearful disorganized. However, if the trauma happens after the age of 3, and then the child, as you said, is fairly securely attached, because there's no perfectly securely attached individual, then yes, it shifts for some time, and then it can go back with a proper guidance and supportive parents and supportive environment, and help also, as an adult, from a therapist or other ways of working with the self. And yes, because if the foundation is there from the age of 0 to 3, it's very difficult to shake it. So maybe we will have, let's say, a post-traumatic stress disorder, okay, to deal with, or some other personality aspect there, avoidant personality, maybe symptoms, but the attachment will remain secure, and the person will be able to go back to where it was with some help. In psychology, we call it resilience. So we will all fall on the ground, even smash our face, but the thing is how fast we will get up and dust ourselves and move on. And this is what makes a difference, at least in my work with my clients, how resilient they are, how fast a person bounces back. And this can be, when you work on yourself, it's faster and faster, so we go down the spiral, but we don't go where we were before, bottom rock. We stop higher, and then we go up, so it's the more we do it, the better we become at it. Let's put it this way, when we are aware, when we are wide awake and alert of what is going on. I was actually a client, and my therapist worked with me many years ago on the attachment theory, and when I found out what is going on, I felt awful about what I have done to my son, and how will he survive, and oh my God, but then I realized that there's no perfect mothers, and as I said, he chose me somehow for his mother, and I see that he's, you know, as he's growing up, he becomes more self-aware, and that's, you know, for me, the most important thing. So yeah, I being mother is not an easy thing, I can tell you that.
If I may ask a question, just because I don't know anything about psychology as a, let's say, entity, you know, in all the movies, well, I won't say all, but a lot of movies were presented a caricature. And most of those caricatures are, let's say, you take the James Bond where, you know, he's not affected by anything. He's the Rock, or like all of these unreal caricatures where there's not really any demonstration of resilience. It's more like they're oblivious, or however you want to talk about it. So does the profession of psychology look at that and address it in terms of like guiding the content so that they can move away from caricatures, or is there just too much money in the whole thing? Like, does psychology look at that in terms of the overall health of the society and how to help that? Yeah, I'll stop there. I don't know if that's a good question or not, or something you can answer.
Yeah, no, there's no good or bad question. It's just that I don't think I don't have the answer to this, Garrett, but to my knowledge, I don't think that psychology, you know, has spent time, you know, has I don't know. They're so you know, because I'm a member of the American Psychologists Association, and they're very, very active in, even now with COVID, you know, because attachment styles, you can imagine now with COVID and all this quarantine and not being able to relate, you know, we have been all more anxious than before. So what is happening now is that they're looking at that, they're looking at, you know, racism and diversity, but I haven't heard anything about, you know, the part that you're bringing up, if I understood correctly, about this caricature, you know, let's say culture. How would I say that? How would I, you know?
Yeah, like this caricature modeling, you know, like rather than anything more relatable in terms of people's own experience. It was just a general question, so that's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
So, unless any more questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining today. It was our first opening webinar this season. And please join us next time. We'll give you a heads up on the next topic. So hopefully we'll see you soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Paniota.